So a big question we always get asked is, what is an annuity, right? You can Google an annuity, you might find words like, these are all terrible, they're super complicated, they're expensive, but let's get into it. What actually is an annuity?
So at its core, it's a contract with you and the insurance company, right? So that doesn't tell you a whole lot. It's fairly vague, but a lot of annuities will have guarantees or promises that the insurance company must fulfill, since it is a contract, which is nice, or certain growth that they'll have to hit. Some are very vanilla. Some, like I'll take your saying, is that some are just like a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Some can get very complicated, like you walk into Froyo and you have my 2-year-old pick, what exactly goes in there, and it's literally everything. So that's kind of where the confusion sets in, is like, what is an annuity? Or I've heard all annuities are bad or all are good, and I don't think either of those statements are right. It just depends on you.
Right, the key is just understanding the details. At the end of the day, an annuity is just a tool. It's a tool that we use with many clients in retirement planning. It's just figuring out whether or not that tool makes the best sense for their job. So what are the types of annuities? Because not all annuities are created equal. So let's try to break down kind of the 3 main types for clients.
Sure, so that first one that we like to talk about is that bowl of vanilla ice cream, right? It's a common term as a fixed annuity. Mm-hmm. It's very similar but different to what a lot of people know, just a CD, right? You get a fixed rate of return, it's predictable, it's safe, there's low risk or no risk, and limited growth potential, because you have that, this is what you're going to get through a certain term.
Right, and then on the flip side, we have variable and indexed annuities. So variable and index annuities are where we start to walk into Froyo and get some toppings, right? Let's start with variable annuities. So with variable annuities, they generally have what's called sub-accounts, which are just like a sister of a mutual fund. They can be very conservative, they can be aggressive, but it's gonna be more in line with kind of what most people are used to when it comes to investing. Fixed annuities generally carry no fees. Variable annuities do. There's a higher cost because there's gonna be costs associated with that ability for that growth and things like that. Indexed annuities, on the flip side, are kind of like a little bit of a hybrid. So many of these are going to have a cap or a floor, meaning that if the market has a terrible year, I'm maybe guaranteed to get 0%, even if the market's down 20. Or maybe I'm guaranteed to get 3%, even if the market's down 20 or 30%. So they have this floor involved. And then how does the insurance company be able to do that? Well, they're going to cap what your growth's going to be. So it might be linked to something like the S&P 500 index, for instance, and it's going to say, okay, we're going to give you a floor of 0 or 3, and then you can participate if the market's doing well, but only up to a certain limit. So for instance, if the cap is 8% and the market just goes on a tear and the market's up 20% that year, you're only going to get the 8%.
Sure. So each of these obviously have their own pros and cons, and really it's about what fits you and your goals and your plan as to which one might fit for you. So let's get into income riders and how they work with what we've already spoken about. So one of the biggest selling points for annuities are these income riders, but how do they actually work?
Yeah, so it's different depending on really what you're looking to do, right? Most people, when you look at these income rider annuities, they're coming to us, right? And maybe they have investments or employer plans, things like that. And they say, gee, my buddy Joe got to retire with a fixed guaranteed income for the rest of his life. He worked for, the state of New York or whatever it may be, and he's doing great. I wish I had that. And really that's what these income riders are designed for, is how do we give you predictable, sustainable income, right, which is what we try to do at Nova Wealth, with a portion of your assets that may have been invested at one point, and then now is going to be able to give you that income for the rest of your life. These could be put on a fixed product, so therefore there's no issue with having to worry about what the market does. You know exactly what you're working with and exactly what that income is going to look like. Or it can be layered on top of an index or variable product where, okay, well, depending on what the market does and what this thing really does between now and the time I really need the income, I know what the worst case I can get for income is, but there's also a higher potential for the income. And I think that to a lot of people can be attractive.
Sure, and so they can really help create a peace of mind for people. They know they have like this guaranteed income, but you really have to understand what you're getting into when you're purchasing one of these contracts.
So each of those types of annuities and the income riders, they all have their pros and cons. It's really just trying to figure out, is it a pro or con for you, an individual client? So let's start with like, what are just some of the pros that you've seen like in general?
Sure. So, number one, I mean, in no order, is guaranteed lifetime income. So that can really, again, put your mind at ease. Two is tax deferred growth. You're not gonna pay any taxes on these until you withdraw money. Three, there's a variety of options. You can get, a lot of different flavors of ice cream, if you will, inside of the annuity wrapper. And peace of mind, again, creating that predictable income that you can't outlive.
Yeah, I think let's start with the pros. Like, let's talk about some stories where we've seen them go right. I mean, I can think of one client in particular. She was in her early 60s, received an inheritance, and her biggest thing is that, like, yes, I do want to leave a legacy when I pass away, but I want that legacy to be when I'm alive too. And she had decided that every single year she wanted to get the family together. They're now in multiple states, take a great vacation with all the children, all the grandchildren. And she said normally costs $20,000 to $30,000 a year. And she was worried about, okay, I have this inheritance money. Ideally, I should be able to do that forever, but what if? What if I live the next 30 years? What if the market doesn't perform well? Yeah. Is there gonna come a time where I can't do that? So we were able to use an annuity, a fixed annuity, with an income rider for her, and it's guaranteeing her that $30,000 a year, no matter what, so that she could do the things that she wants, take that family on a trip without ever having to worry about what did the market do today, or is this ever gonna run out of money?
Yeah, that's what we live for, right? Is being able to just take that, worry off of people's plate. So, I've got a similar but different story. I had a client that they had money that was invested. It did really, really well, and they had about $300,000 of gains. Now, then they said, well, we're a little uneasy. The market's crazy. How do we guarantee some more of that income? So what we did is we took the gains off the table and we guaranteed a portion of their income. So now their account was what it was before. They took the gains and now they're able to guarantee that. So it's something that just, again, giving them that peace of mind.
Right. Annuities can be great, especially if you're looking for that predictable, sustainable income, if that's a goal for you. So annuities aren't all great. We've seen them definitely misused. There's plenty of cons that can come into play with annuities. So let's talk about those.
So a lot of times this is what people will Google or look on the internet of, like, this is it. This is the bad side of. There can be really high fees involved in typically variable annuities. They can be really high. There can be high commissions that aren't always disclosed. So that's always gives all annuities a bad name. They can be really complex, the contracts, especially when it shows up at somebody's house and it's this thick and, it's all written by an attorney, right? So it's all super convoluted and it's not what you deal with every day. So again, super complicated. There can be limited liquidity, and a lot of times there is limited liquidity. So you see this nice account value, but if you want to get at that money, a lot of times you have to pay to get your own money. So it's something that you really want to be cognizant of while you're purchasing it, is that that what these contracts say and that it can be explained back to you and what it means. And again, it's not always the right fit for everybody. Just because your neighbor has an annuity that gives them income, you're not your neighbor. So it doesn't really matter what anyone else has. It's what really fits in your own plan.
Yeah, and we see them a lot of times misused when someone comes to us the first time, right? We ask them, bring all your stuff, right? They bring us a statement. And I know, like, for instance, a client story that comes to my mind was a client who came in who had a wife with a really strong pension. She was a state employee. They both had sizable Social Securities, but they really didn't spend a whole lot of money. And when he was showing me his statement, it was a statement of 100% of every dollar he had ever saved into his 401k was sold and put into an annuity by somebody he met at the bank, right? And we talked about it a little bit. I asked him, do you know what this is? Do you know how it works? And he's like, oh yeah, it's, I bought it because I was really nervous about the market. It's guaranteed to go up a certain amount per year, 6%. It was a variable annuity with a rider. And he said, I know it's going to go up by 6% per year. And I said, well, yeah, but that's one column of the money, right? So that's if you turn this on and actually use it as income. Do you think you'll ever do that? He said, no, I want to give this money to my kids. And I'm like, okay, well, you're only going to get that column of money if you turn this on as income. It's going to be another $40,000 a year to him, which, like, some of our clients would love to use. This specific client was never going to use that. And this account had very high fees. His investments, although aggressive, could perform better without obviously the drag of those different costs. And if he's not going to use it, basically what I told him is, you have a very expensive yacht and you're living in the middle of the desert, right? It's great to look at, it has a ton of bells and whistles. You might even show it off to your buddies, but at the end of the day, you're never putting that thing in water. It's a really expensive thing to upkeep if you're never going to actually use it.
Yeah. So similar but different story. I've got a client that had purchased an income rider annuity before I met him. I helped him turn it on, but he was under the assumption from the previous broker that, okay, I can turn this income rider annuity on. It's going to give me income for the rest of my life, but then I can also take all the money out of it, and it's still going to guarantee me income. And we had to end up calling the annuity company and say, like, what happens if he takes out half of this money? And guess what? The income portion is going to go down proportionally with that. And a lot of, like we said before, can be very complicated and can get lost in the sauce of what exactly they do and how they work.
Yeah, so I think it comes down to annuities aren't always bad. They're just mostly misunderstood or potentially misused, and that's usually where people are going to get burned with them.
At Nova Wealth, we don't believe in just selling you stuff, right? We believe in creating a retirement income plan for you. So sometimes annuities fit inside of those plans, and sometimes they don't.
And if you want to know if an annuity fits inside your goals, just comment checklist below, and we'll send you that checklist as well as a link to schedule on our calendar.